Austin, Texas pulsed with a vibrant, sometimes chaotic energy that Claire Reyes thrived on. From the window of her small design studio in a rapidly gentrifying East Austin neighborhood, she could see murals blooming on old brick walls and hear the distant thrum of a live music spilling from unseen bars. It felt real, creative, alive, a stark contrast to the manicured lawns and quiet, imposing wealth of Westlake Hills where she'd grown up and where her parents, Harrison and Genevieve Reyes, still resided. Claire, an architect with a growing reputation for thoughtful, human-centered design, poured herself another cup of strong coffee. Running Reyes Design Collaborative wasn't easy, especially juggling it with being a mom to 8-year-old Lily and wife to Marcus, a pragmatic software engineer whose calm logic often anchored her creative intensity. But the work was fulfilling. Unlike her father's company, Reyes Development, a behemoth known for luxury condos and gleaming office towers, Claire focused on smaller projects with soul. Revitalized neighborhood spaces, independent cafes, community centers. She wasn't chasing headlines or astronomical profits. She was chasing impact, connection. That difference in ambition was a chasm within the Reyes family. Harrison Reyes, patriarch and founder of Reyes Development, equated success solely with scale, status, and the bottom line. Genevieve, his impeccably dressed wife, curated the family's social standing with meticulous care, her warmth reserved primarily for public display and for their son, Preston. Claire's younger brother by 2 years, the golden child, the designated heir. He worked under Harrison, already carrying a VP title that Claire suspected had more to do with lineage than accomplishment. Preston was effortlessly charming, knew how to work a room, and possessed a knack for taking credit that bordered on performance art. Claire loved her brother, or at least the idea of him, but the disparity in their parents' regard had been a constant low-grade hum throughout her life. She remembered the family dinner last month celebrating Preston landing a minor feature in a local business journal. Champagne flowed. Genevieve recounted his supposed brilliance to anyone who would listen. When Claire had cautiously mentioned her own firm finally winning the bid for the Harmony Center project, a community arts facility she'd poured her heart into designing for an underserved neighborhood, her father had merely grunted. Community centers don't exactly pay the bills, Claire. While her mother smoothly changed the subject back to Preston's upcoming golf tournament. It wasn't malice exactly, just a fundamental lack of interest, a failure to see value in anything that didn't directly enhance the Reyes family brand as they defined it. Claire sighed, pushing the memory away, and focused back on the blueprint spread across her drafting table, the Harmony Center. It was more than just another project. It was a culmination of years of work, a chance to create something truly meaningful for the city. The design was innovative, incorporating sustainable materials and flexible spaces designed to foster creativity and connection. Construction was nearly complete, the striking facade already drawing attention, the opening gala just weeks away. This project could elevate her small firm, prove that thoughtful design could coexist with practical execution. Its success felt crucial, not just professionally, but personally, a quiet validation against the backdrop of her family's indifference. She traced the lines of the main performance space, a complex structure involving exposed timber beams and a cantilevered balcony. It had been challenging, pushing the boundaries of conventional construction, requiring meticulous coordination. There had been a few hiccups with subcontractors early on, some delays, a minor dispute over materials supplied for the foundational work, vaguely linked to a subsidiary sometimes used by Reyes Development. Preston had supposedly smoothed things over back then, assuring everyone it was handled. Claire hadn't thought much of it at the time, too consumed by the design itself. Now, with the finish line in sight, she felt a familiar mix of excitement and anxiety. This had to go perfectly. The Harmony Center wasn't just concrete and steel, it was a piece of her soul, offered up to the city she loved. She just hoped the foundation beneath it was as solid as her belief in its purpose. The call came on a Tuesday morning, just 3 weeks before the Harmony Center's grand opening gala. Claire was reviewing lighting fixture specs with Marcus, who often consulted on her projects, when her site manager's name flashed across her phone screen. His voice was tight with a tension that immediately set her nerves on edge. "Claire, you need to get down here. Now the city inspectors just red flagged the main performance space. Seriously, red flagged it." "What? Why?" Claire gripped the edge of her desk. "We passed preliminary structural weeks ago." "They found micro-fractures," the manager said, his voice strained, "in 3 of the primary support beams for the cantilevered balcony. said it's evidence of substandard load tolerance given the final fixtures and acoustic paneling load. They've issued an immediate stop work order on the entire wing and are demanding a full-scale independent engineering review and remediation plan before they'll even consider signing off. They're talking months, Claire. Months, potential lawsuits. It's bad. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. Microfractures? Substandard load tolerance? It didn't make sense. Her calculations had been checked and double-checked by independent engineers. The materials specified were top grade, unless the materials delivered weren't the ones specified. That early dispute with the supplier Preston had supposedly handled flashed through her mind, unwelcome and ominous. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at her throat. This wasn't just a setback. It was a potential catastrophe. The Harmony Center was her flagship project, the one meant to solidify her firm's reputation. A public failure, especially one involving structural integrity, could be career-ending. Lawsuits from the community board that commissioned the project, negative press, losing future contracts, it could all unravel in weeks. The gala invitations were already sent, city officials scheduled to attend. The humiliation alone would be immense. She spent the next 48 hours in a frantic blur, meeting with her structural engineer, the site manager, digging through material certifications. The initial assessment was grim. The remediation would be complex, expensive, and time-consuming. Worse, navigating the city bureaucracy for expedited reviews and approvals under these circumstances required clout, the kind of high-level influence her small firm simply didn't possess. They needed someone who could make calls, pull strings, get specialized assessments fast-tracked, lend their established name to vouch for the remediation process, and manage the delicate PR situation. They needed Reyes Development. Swallowing her pride, Claire made the call. She requested a meeting with her father in Preston, framing it as an urgent project consultation. She found herself waiting in the sleek, impersonal lobby of the Reyes Development Tower downtown, the polished chrome and abstract art feeling more alienating than impressive. She was ushered into Harrison's expansive corner office, overlooking the Austin skyline. Her father sat behind a vast mahogany desk, Preston lounging in a leather armchair nearby, scrolling through his phone. Claire laid out the situation quickly, concisely, emphasizing the unexpected nature of the inspection findings, the potential fallout, and crucially, the type of help she needed. "I'm not asking for money," she stated clearly, meeting her father's impassive gaze. "I need the firm's weight behind this. Your connections at the city planning department, access to top-tier structural analysts for an expedited review, perhaps Reyes Development's legal team to advise on managing the contractual implications, and public statement. Just your backing, your influence, to help navigate this bureaucracy quickly and contain the damage before it spirals." Harrison steepled his fingers, his expression unreadable. "Claire," he began, his tone measured, "while this is unfortunate, you must understand Reyes Development has its own reputation to consider. Associating ourselves with a project facing potential structural failure, especially right before its public launch. The optics are terrible. The risk is simply too high." "Risk?" Claire felt a surge of disbelief. "Dad, my entire firm is at risk. The community—" Preston finally looked up from his phone, an annoyingly sympathetic half-smile playing on his lips. "Claire, maybe this is a learning experience. We always said you should have used our preferred structural team. Trying to cut corners with smaller outfits—" "I didn't cut corners!" Claire snapped, stung by the implication. "My engineers are excellent. This finding is anomalous. Something else is—" "Regardless," Harrison interrupted, his tone hardening. "We cannot divert resources or attention right now. Preston's Azure Point Tower launches next month. Millions in marketing, international investors flying in. That is the firm's priority. We can't afford any negative press splashback from this." He gestured dismissively, as if the Harmony Center were a minor inconvenience. "So you won't help?" Claire asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You won't even make a phone call?" "It's not that simple," Harrison said curtly. "Our brand integrity comes first. Handle it quietly, darling," Genevieve's voice echoed later that evening over the phone, after Harrison had clearly briefed her. "Don't drag the family name into your professional difficulties. Think of the embarrassment." Claire stood numbly after the call ended. It wasn't just the refusal, it was the reasoning, brand integrity, Preston's launch, embarrassment. There was no concern for her career, for the community project she'd poured her life into. Just cold, hard calculation, centered on their own image and their favorite son. She had come asking for a lifeline, the kind they could have thrown effortlessly. Instead, they'd pointedly looked the other way, prioritizing their gleaming facade over her potential ruin. She was utterly, terrifyingly alone. The Harmony Center, her dream project, now felt like it could become her professional tombstone. Claire returned to the studio, the icy finality of her family's rejection settling heavily in the Austin heat. Marcus met her at the door, taking one look at her face before pulling her into a fierce hug. "Okay," he said, his voice tight with anger on her behalf, but his eyes determined. "Forget them. It's us. We handle this. What's the absolute priority?" His unwavering support was a lifeline as they plunged into the maelstrom. The following weeks were a grueling test of endurance. Claire coordinated constantly with her engineers, architects, and the increasingly anxious community board, while Marcus applied his analytical mind to organizing the mountains of technical data and researching potential structural reinforcement techniques. They faced frustrating delays at the city planning department, their applications seemingly lost in bureaucratic limbo without the weight of a name like Reyes Development behind them. Specialist consultants quoted fees that made Claire's blood run cold. The Harmony Center, once a symbol of hope, now felt like an anchor dragging her small firm towards ruin. Feeling the pressure mounting, Claire confided in David and Sarah during a brief, strained visit. Marcus's parents listened intently, their usual warmth replaced by a steely resolve. David, tapping into the network he'd built over decades as a respected electrician, made a call to a retired city planning supervisor. While his friend couldn't bypass regulations, he offered invaluable procedural advice and made sure Claire's subsequent filings received a fair hearing, preventing them from being indefinitely stalled. Sarah, leveraging her librarian skills, unearthed crucial zoning precedents related to the site and connected Claire with a retired lawyer offering pro bono guidance on navigating municipal codes. Their help was practical, grounded, born of care, a stark, painful contrast to the calculated self-interest of her own family. This grassroots support had provided crucial leverage. Combined with Claire's tireless work and her team's dedication, they formulated a complex, costly, but feasible remediation plan for the compromised beams. They resubmitted revised plans and permit applications, navigating the process slowly but surely. The project wasn't saved yet, the galley definitely scrapped, the budget shattered, but it was no longer doomed. A fragile sense of hope returned. It was amidst this exhaustive remediation planning, while meticulously reviewing every document related to the building's structure, that the hidden crack was finally exposed. Claire's lead engineer called her over to his monitor, his expression grim. "Claire, look at the material certifications for the main balcony beams," he said, pointing to a specific line item. "The delivery logs from Structon Materials list a slightly different steel alloy grade than what was in your original approved specification." Structon. The Reyes Development subsidiary Preston had overseen for that phase. A cold dread snaked up Claire's spine. "Dig deeper," she urged. "Check all correspondence related to that supply order." After hours of searching through archived project files and forwarded emails, they found it. An email thread between Preston and the Structon supply manager from months earlier. In black and white, Preston questioned the excessive cost of the high-grade steel Claire had specified. He authorized the substitution of a cheaper, lower-tolerance alloy for those critical beams, adding a casual, chilling directive: source the alternative locally if needed. Just ensure the final documentation reflects the original spec code. No need for lengthy variance reports on this one. Claire stared at the email, the room seeming to spin. The micro-fractures, the stop work order, the near-catastrophic failure. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't unforeseen complexity. It was the direct result of her brother deliberately cutting corners, substituting inferior materials, likely to boost his own project's budget or simply out of arrogant negligence, and then falsifying documents to cover his tracks. He hadn't just abandoned her in a crisis. He had laid the groundwork for that crisis himself. And the sickening realization followed. Harrison, with his emphasis on the bottom line and his blind spot for Preston, must have either known or chosen not to know. The betrayal was absolute, cutting deeper than the earlier rejection. This wasn't just indifference, it was active sabotage disguised as business as usual. Saving the Harmony Center, fighting for her reputation, now carried the bitter weight of her own family's treachery. Her resolve didn't waver, but it now burned with a colder, harder flame. Okay. Jai la fan bonva kung la fan kuoi kung. Joy mat nguon kon and lua chon chin truk. Confronting the source and ethical alignment, Teo Kichpa Dan Tieng Wei Mun, Voyager Dai Kwang So Tram Tu. Part 4. Confronting the source and ethical alignment. Armed with the damning email thread, Claire felt a cold clarity settle over her. The fight to save the Harmony Center had transformed. Now, it was also about confronting the source of its near destruction. She requested another meeting at the Reyes Development Tower, specifying both Harrison and Preston must attend. The atmosphere in Harrison's office this time was thick with tension. Claire wasted no time. She placed a printed copy of the email chain, Preston's authorization of substandard materials, the instruction to falsify paperwork, squarely on the polished mahogany desk. I believe this explains the anomalous microfractures at the Harmony Center, she stated, her voice level, devoid of tremor. Preston went pale, then quickly tried to bluster. Now hold on, Claire. That's likely taken out of context. Standard value engineering discussions. Value engineering doesn't involve falsifying documentation for substituted materials, Preston. Claire cut him off coolly, especially not on a primary structural elements. Harrison stared at the emails, his face unreadable for a moment before a dark flush crept up his neck. He looked not at Claire, but at his son. Preston? What is this? Preston stammered. It was a supplier issue. Structon made an error. The email clearly shows you authorizing the substitution and the cover-up, Claire said flatly. She turned to her father. And it happened using a Reyes subsidiary under your company's umbrella. This didn't just put my project and reputation at risk, it put the community members who would use that center at risk. Harrison finally met her gaze, his eyes cold. There was no apology, only calculation. This document, he tapped the email printout, must remain confidential. Reyes Development will, of course, cover the necessary remediation costs quietly, considerate. Support. Claire almost laughed. Support? It was hush money. The Harmony Center will be remediated correctly, she said, standing up, using materials that meet the original specifications overseen by independent engineers. My firm will manage it. She looked from her brother's panicked face to her father's stony expression. I know what you did. Both of you, whether through action or willful blindness. That knowledge changes everything. She didn't wait for a response, simply turned and walked out, leaving the damning emails on the desk behind her. The remediation was long and arduous, draining her firm's resources, but Claire ensured it was done impeccably, transparently. The Harmony Center eventually opened, delayed but safe, a testament to her resilience. But the experience fundamentally shifted her. She restructured Reyes Design Collaborative, embedding ethical sourcing and community accountability into its core mission. Her reputation, once bruised, was rebuilt on a foundation of integrity, earning her deep respect within Austin's architectural community, even if her projects weren't as large or flashy as her father's. Consequences eventually found Reyes Development. Though Claire never leaked the emails, whispers about the Harmony Center incident, and Preston's methods began to circulate. An investigative piece in a local journal on construction practices alluded to issues at Structon Materials. Reyes Development lost a lucrative city contract. Preston's much-hyped Azure Point Tower faced unexpected financing hurdles as investors grew cautious. Months later, Harrison called Claire. His voice lacked its usual authority. He spoke of market difficulties and unfair scrutiny, then obliquely asked if Claire's firm, with its newfound reputation for integrity, might consider a joint venture on a smaller project to restore public confidence. Claire's refusal was polite, but absolute. I'm sorry, Dad, but my firm's values and direction are different now. We're not aligned. She didn't need to say more. The boundary forged in betrayal and rebuilt with integrity was clear. She found her peace not in their downfall, but in her own quiet success, defined on her own terms. Her Austin studio thrived, known for its ethical practices. Life with Marcus and Lily, grounded by the steady warmth of David and Sarah, so was full. She didn't need the approval or the borrowed reputations of the Reyes name. She was building her own legacy, one based not on polished surfaces, but on a solid, unshakable foundation of truth.